Hello friends! In this video, we're not just looking at an ordinary note about Poland lacking drivers, but a classic, thorough anatomy of a crisis in a major industry that, until just yesterday, was literally considered the undeniable driving force of the Polish economy. We're going to talk about the TSL sector, transport, forwarding, logistics, and about how a perfect storm of labor shortages, fuel shocks, and a tough geopolitical reshuffle is currently grinding down Polish business. Let's discuss everything now. Please leave a like, subscribe to the channel right now, and check your notifications if you know what I mean. Friends, thank you so much for your support. Let's get to business. There will be timestamps. Part 1, the staffing deadlock. How did cheap labor stop being an eternal resource? First, the fact is, the Polish logistics model relied on two pillars. These are the advantageous geographical location between East and West, and the abundant influx of inexpensive, highly mobile labor from sunny Ukraine. For decades, Polish entrepreneurs and European clients have gotten used to the fact that in a truck cabin or at a warehouse near Poznan, there will always be someone ready to work 12, 14, or even 16 hours a day. But here's the thing. A capitalist economy always goes through a very painful period when an endless resource suddenly runs out, and Ukrainians little by little are leaving, especially the skilled ones. Look, here's what we have in the cold, objective reality by the summer of 2026. The first warning signs appeared back in 2022, when the gradual outflow of Ukrainian drivers and specialists began. Well, let's be honest, many got residency, the borders are open. And why shouldn't I work in Germany? Hello, Sergei Pensioner. By the beginning of 2026, as reported by the Occupation Barometer and analysts from the Polish Economic Institute, the truck driver vacancy had turned into a chronic shortage in 326 out of 380 Polish counties. Almost the entire country, from Podkarpacie to Szczecin, was left without enough drivers. And what experts are saying is that after the fighting in Ukraine ends, a large-scale process of rebuilding the country will begin is not just a fantasy. Ukraine will rebuild its infrastructure, factories, and logistics. This will require tens of thousands of drivers, crane operators, dispatchers, and logisticians. What does this mean for Warsaw? Fierce competition, masterpieces, as they say in Poland. Polish companies will have to compete for workers not only with wealthy Germany and the Netherlands, but also with Ukraine itself, where thanks to international grants and investments, construction sites will offer quite serious money. And of course, it's closer to home. The second issue is demographic gaps, which we will talk about later. In Poland itself, young people do not want to go into the profession. According to analysts, in Poland, drivers younger than 25 years old make up a mere 3%, and 1/3 of all long-haul truck drivers in the European Union are people over 55 years old. In the next decade, they will simply retire if their health allows them to live that long. Well, by the way, according to the article, some of them don't have any successors. Life in a truck cab for weeks on end just doesn't appeal to modern young people, no matter how beautifully it's advertised or how well it pays. They tried to attract workers from Asia, Africa, and Latin America. They tried, but there, the business immediately ran into the language barrier, bureaucratic hell with getting visas and CC plus E category licenses, and of course, purely cultural differences. Warehouse automation is a good thing, but as long as algorithms can't drive a truck across the border, you still need someone behind the wheel. Next, we have part 2. The fuel hammer. When every trip becomes unprofitable, the shortage of personnel is only half the problem. The second wave of trouble came from where you should always expect it. In such an unstable global system, news came from the energy market, while carriers were racking their brains about who to use to fill the gaps in the shift schedules. In August 2026, the portals ePetrol PL and Pub shocked the market with a historic record. Diesel in Poland soared to a crazy 8.24 zloty. Friends, tell me how much diesel costs where you are right now. And here there are absolutely material reasons without any mysticism. Another round of escalation in the Middle East, a shortage of refined fuel, sky-high margins for oil refineries. The introduction of new environmental levies by EU bureaucrats, like the ETS2 system, which further inflates and increases the cost of every liter. Now, let's do the math on our fingers. The cost structure of any trucking company. Diesel fuel is not a minor expense. According to the data, it's about 30 or even 40% of all expenses. So what happens? Diesel prices have risen by almost a zloty in a short period of time. And freight rates, that is the cost of transporting goods due to the overall slowdown of the European economy, are either staying the same or even going down. Carriers from the Silesian Chamber and the Northwest are sounding the alarm. Many routes have simply become predictably unprofitable. You fill up the tank for 1,500 euros, take the cargo to Rotterdam, and when you come back, damn, it turns out we worked at a loss. What's the result? According to the data, there's this, SMPD, the Road Carriers Association. Just in the first quarter of 2026, 1,234 transport companies quietly, or with a scandal, disappeared from the Polish market. In short, bankruptcies are happening one after another. All right. And third, we have political games and the border. It breaks at the weakest point. Do you think the problems are over? No, my friends, look, we're only at the 6th minute of the video. No, that's not it. On top of all this, there's the administrative and political factor, the scent system. The return of border controls at the internal borders of the European Union, when German or Czech border guards are once again inspecting trucks. Plus, there are massive traffic jams at the Ukrainian-Polish border, which we talked about just yesterday, at the Jagodin-Dorohusk checkpoints Dorohusk. There are just thousands. Yes, and now the wait is measured in weeks instead of days. And a truck that's stuck in such a line for 7 days doesn't bring its owner a single penny. But it still requires paying the driver's salary, daily allowances, and it consumes resources. Well, as they say, the system is jammed. At the same time, there is a fierce pre-election inter-party fight going on in Warsaw itself. Right-wing parties, led by Karol Nawrocki and the PIS party, are actively pushing a patriotic agenda. They promise to cut everything for foreigners and threaten deportations. They are putting forward a tough historical ultimatum regarding the Volyn massacre and more. They demand to restrict foreigners' access to the market. As you can imagine, none of this makes the situation any more hopeful. From the standpoint of winning votes, their logic is easy enough to understand. We're selling voters a strongman who'll come in, restore order, and protect them from migrants. But from the point of view of the owner of a logistics park or a warehouse, this all looks completely absurd. The government, on one hand, can't solve the problem with diesel prices, while the opposition and the president, on the other hand, are threatening to cut off the only remaining source of labor. And we smoothly move on to the fourth part, systemic consequences. For some, it's a crisis. For others, it's a gold mine, so to speak. What does all this mean for the entire economy? In the capitalist world, nothing happens just like that. If even one link falls out of the chain, the whole house of cards collapses. No one is saying the economy is going to collapse or that tomorrow there'll just be an empty field where Poland used to be. That's not true. The problem is that everything is getting more expensive. If transporting a pallet of pasta, canned goods, or household chemicals, whatever, becomes 20% more expensive, that money doesn't just come out of thin air. Who's going to pay for it? The regular shopper at the supermarket. The end consumer, the logistics markup will simply show up on your receipt at checkout. Well, friends, let's talk about capital concentration. It's an interesting point. Small family businesses that had 3 to 5 trucks are the first to go out of business. Giant international logistics corporations take their place. They have a safety margin, they can put pressure on banks, get wholesale discounts on fuel, and buy up bankrupt competitors for next to nothing. Let's talk about another point, accelerated automation. That's also an interesting factor. Large hubs near Wrocław, Lublin, and Warsaw will be forced to invest money. Billions in sorting robots and autonomous forklifts. Not because they want to, but because a human forklift operator is becoming too expensive and a rare luxury. So friends, what do we have left? The story of the exodus of Ukrainian workers and the record diesel price of 8.24 per liter is a fundamental lesson for the entire Polish economic model. For years, the Polish transport and logistics sector operated under a relatively comfortable illusion that cheap fuel and cheap drivers would bring in profits. But as you can see, the real world is stubborn and cold-blooded. Geopolitics, inflation, demographics, and oil prices don't pay attention to any pre-election promises or campaign brochures. And when the system faces reality, a simple fact becomes clear. Without flexibility, real investment in infrastructure, smart migration policy, and control over monopolies in the fuel market, a transport power starts to rapidly lose its wheels. Well, friends, that's the harsh economic reality, and at the same time, it's dialectics. Basically, that's all. I wanted to go on waxing poetic for another 5 minutes, but I don't really see the point because I'm trying to keep it within 10 to 12 minutes. Even though I'd like to say more, I'm trying to keep it short. Brevity is the sister of talent. Yes. Thanks for your attention, friends. Please like, comment, and shout out to the working class and truckers. You're awesome. A lot depends on you, and you're even more likable because your hands are busy. You listen to the video until the end. Sometimes you even write comments. Take care of yourselves. There aren't that many of you. Big shout out to the whole working class builders and computer guys as well. That's all for now. And to the logisticians too. Logisticians, since we're at it. And to the freight forwarders. That's all for now. See you next time. Take care of yourselves and your loved ones. Remember, TransferBook is the top money transfer service. Find the link and my promo code in the description. Thanks to my promo code, you get some great bonuses. Go ahead, sign up. That's all for now. See you next time.